The title of today's class is How to Overcome Mental Slavery, Part 2. How to Overcome Mental Slavery, Part 2. You didn't know you were a mental slave, did you? Well, I'm going to prove to you that you are a mental slave. I'm going to prove to you there's two types of slavery, and I'm going to teach you what is the path to true freedom. You're a slave. Now, you could be a slave to your lower nature, to your passions, to your animal nature, which is comprised of your conditioned mind based on your family upbringing or your society you're in, or your genetic mind, your genes. You can be a slave to that, to those angers and passions and lusts. Or you can be a slave to your divine nature. You can make that choice. If you're a slave to your divine nature, higher nature, which, when you're a slave to your divine nature, that's the path to true freedom. Listen to that. When you're a slave to your divine nature, you're free. When you're a slave to your lower nature, to your animal nature, that is the most entrapped prison. So one type of slavery leads to being in prison, the prison of self, and the other type of slavery leads to freedom. It's got to be a totally new concept for you. If you're a person governed by jealousies and angers and rages and resentments, that's being a slave to your lower nature, to your conditioned mind, to your genetic mind. If you're a slave to the teachings of God, that will produce freedom and take you out of prison. So you're a slave in either way, but one, you're in prison, and the other, you're free. Now, typically when you think of a slave, you think of no choice, and you think of some suffering. A person could be, we had physical forms of slavery, the Jews in Egypt, black people in America and Western world for a period of time. There was certainly no choice, and it was a great deal of suffering entailed in it. Some of the dimensions of slavery. And for many people, for many of you, or many of you that you know, people don't have choices. They're a slave. Something happens, they're a slave to that. They can't help even how they react. And I'll give you one example. Most people, when they have a tribulation, a hardship, a setback, they don't have a choice. They become upset, angry, start blaming. Maybe they feel someone did something to them and they want to have revenge. You don't have a choice. There's no choice. And they're suffering. They're suffering. Now keep in mind, that's not even them. Your slave nature to your lower nature, that's not even you. It's not even really you. You never chose to get angry, jealous, aloof, distant, wanting revenge. You never chose that. You never say, I want to be somebody that gets really upset, really angry. I don't want to just dwell on that anger. I want to dwell on that hurt feeling. I want to dwell on an inferior feeling. Nobody ever chose that. But you're a slave to it. But there's a path to freedom, which is to be a slave to your divine nature. And I want to talk to you about how we do that. Now, most people, especially when there's a hardship, a tribulation, they're diagnosed with cancer, they're diagnosed with some disease, they automatically go, oh, God, this is terrible. They're a slave. They can't even help how they react. There's no choice, and they're suffering. They're miserable. Get fired from a job. Oh, God, it's the end of the world. They're a slave to those thoughts of catastrophic ideas and expectations where I would be on the street. And you will remain a slave to that unless you understand the warrior's power thought. So to escape that slavery and become a slave to your divine nature, you have to then say, I welcome the power I gain from hardship. Thank you, God. I welcome the power I gain from hardship. Thank you, God. That's one of the keys to escaping slavery to your lower nature, to your animal nature, where you're actually welcoming the power that you're gaining from the tribulation, from the crisis, from the hardship. And you're thanking God. So to the extent that you're a slave to that thought, I welcome the power I gain from hardship. Thank you, God. Well, you want that to be your reaction automatically.